You're listening to The Bon Ray Show. It's 8 in the evening. Tune in every night at 8 to listen to The Bon Ray Show on Irish News Radio or ITV.
The Bon Ray Show on ITV.ie and Irish News Radio. Today is Monday, so we're talking about the financial mess and what we're going to be entering into even more of a mess as the time goes down, as the EU looks like it is collapsing, as countries are splitting up and dividing in the EU. Very much lines have been drawn. The latest one is Bulgaria, Romania and Serbia and Greece have declared war on Islam, the UN and the EU. They've invited Israel to join forces with them in this historic summit. They say we stand together in the battle against terrorism and against militant Islam. The battle is for the future and for our common values and our common civilization. We declare war against the EU, the UN and the militant Islam. We uncovered recently there are several Iranian attempts to launch terrorism on the soil of Europe, and we stand together against terrorism. They say Britain and the US and Australia must stop funding the UN. They go on to talk about the UN. They say the UN the General Assembly election is mainly consists of Islamic countries. Countries that practice Sharia law have been chosen for human rights. Countries like Iran have been given a seat in the UN human rights. Women get stoned to death, gays are executed in public, Christians are persecuted. And in Saudi there's no religion allowed, and if anybody leaves Islam in Saudi are executed. Pakistan is apparently the worst country for Christians to live in. These countries have kidnapped the UN bodies to push an anti-Israel and an anti-Western agenda. They attack democratic countries and have this anti-white and anti-Western values. So that they're quite strong about all this. They're like literally standing together, and it looks like what they mean by declaring war on the EU, UN, but that's what the article reads, which is quite strange. So anyway, they seem to have definitely lines have been drawn down. There's no way back. There is no life for the EU. And the UN seems to be going down the same way that they seem to be, but because it's mainly Islamic, I suppose. Slovakia completely refuses Islam and won't allow a single mosque. The only EU member state without a mosque. And that's why they were able to get away with having no refugees, because they used the excuse very cleverly that they had no mosques and they had no facilities. But the rest of us who are traitorous governments didn't get away with anything like that. But lucky for these countries that they have good governments. The country does not recognise Islam as there's only a few thousand Muslims, 5,000, 0.1 of the population. They're not allowed to have an official religious leader. They're not allowed to have Muslim marriages or receive financial contributions in the form of state. So they're not allowed social benefits. Absolutely fantastic. That is amazing. Okay, another one. Poland and Hungary not taking any Muslims or so-called refugees. Fantastic. The moron in France, Macron, the moron, has been at war of words against Hungarian Prime Minister. The EU parliamentary elections due in May. Viktor Orban, he welcomes anti-immigration parties gaining a majority in the coming election. Moron has the head of the pro-immigration of Europe, the destruction of Europe, vowed to fight what he stands for and everything about this anti-immigration. So he's very much pro, as we know it, and has destroyed France. Um, so the Hungarian Prime Minister is very much looking forward because they are gaining. There's a lot of countries that are becoming anti-immigration, thankfully, in the EU. But it's all been, with France and Germany, it's a complete breakdown of our civilization. There will be either a war, hopefully the EU will collapse and save us all this bloody massive war that's coming to Europe again because of Germany, and bloody France this time can get the blame as well with fucking Germans. I mean, it's not the German people. In fact, I think a lot of them are out protesting their bloody government. But my anger with the Germans is, why did they vote her back in after the massive amount of rapes and killing in their own country? She should have been charged for mass raping, mass gang rapes and mass murder in her own country. Never mind what she's done to Europe. She shouldn't have been voted back in. She destroyed a whole continent. And this moron is now her little, I don't know, puppy dog idiot who's lapdog. And he has now stepped in to help her continue on the destruction of Europe and our heritage and our culture with other idiots like Leo, disgusting characters like them in. So Urban goes on to say, migration is bad for Europe and Hungary. Therefore, I must fight him with all the way. And believing there's a shift on the migration issue, Polish-Italian agreement and strengthening the EU border, Orban says it's been the greatest development in the EU. Also accused Germany of disrespecting Hungary's position on the migration issue and says they're constantly pressurised from Berlin to let migrants in. Germany do not respect Hungary's position on migrants. Macron is in conflict with Hungary, Italy, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Poland and Austria over migrants. He has brought France to a civil war. My God, as you can see there, even just reading those articles, there's so many countries that are so against this. Yet because Germany and the EU had the head leaders like Juncker, who's mainly drunk, and the German and the French were pushing this. But you can see so many countries now, Hungary, Italy, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Poland and Austria, are not taking, and Italy are not taking any more crap off the EU. So definitely it looks like either the EU will shift, as the Hungarian leader predicts in May. It'll have to shift because so many countries are so unhappy, or it'll be the end of the EU. It'll be interesting to see what's happening coming down. And the UN, as countries talk out about the UN deal, which they should be, unless you have a country like Ireland who has a complete fake leader and a fake media, you wouldn't know what's going on. So this is the real news, people. So get in touch. If you want something talked about, if you want a discussion, get on, get involved, and get people into the local elections. If you've got conservative voices, start getting a movement in Ireland. We're slow on this train, as the other European countries seem to have. Even with that moron in France, you can see they've brought that country to civil war. He's arrested over 4,400 or something people for demonstrating. So the number's got 4,700, sorry. It's rising all the time. Ridiculous. And some lady I was hearing had lost her arm, or a young person had lost her arm in this. So we're not hearing all this. The police are just becoming thuggery towards them. They've been told to stamp this out because they don't want it all over Europe, because they're the last two, the moron and Germans. And Germans are out there protesting that idiot leader. But it's unbelievable. And you think of, in less than 100 years, Germany has caused 3 world wars, and we are heading for a war. Like, if we're not already in it. At the moment, it's only words and complete takeover as we see it. First of all, you have the UN, which is a complete bullshit organisation, which seems to be at the top of this, is mainly Islamic, as those countries there, Greece and other ones I've read out, had mentioned that it is an Islamic state and they're pushing Sharia law into the UN countries. Then you have the EU, which seems to be like its little brother, and you have all those countries are read out, screaming out and talking out about the destruction of Europe because of the EU. And there's supposed to be another union, which is mainly Islamic, and the guy running it will be Islamic, pretty much like the UN, which is a disgrace. Like, you look at all the human rights countries for the human right are all Islamic. There's no human rights in Iran and Saudi Arabia. It's a horrific place to live if you're a Christian or if you're a female. There's certainly no human rights, far from it. And it's against everything Christian and anything civilized. It's absolutely the opposite. So they've all been taken over and kidnapped, as Urban said, and to push their agenda on civilized world. Well, thank you for listening on the Bonnery Show. Again, if you've anything you want to talk about, and keep spreading this channel and get it out, and because this, you need to hear the real news. Hopefully the end of the EU, or as Orban in Hungary has predicted, that it will be a shift. It will be an anti-immigration policy. Please God, either I'd rather it go without a war, but if it goes to a war because these bloody globalists like Leo and the moron in France and the Canadian idiot, those people are pushing it so far, and they've got so far ahead without people waking up. Like, Ireland were very slow to wake up, but the rest of the countries have woke up. So please God that it just dissolves and that the EU falls apart, and then they can recreate something under civilization and about trade and not taking everyone's countries, or it goes to war. The latter would be tough on all of us, but maybe it's something that needs to be done to stop Islam and to stop the globalists from taking over. Well, thank you for listening on the Bonnery Show. Talk to you tomorrow.
You are listening to Irish News Radio at irishnews.net. Email news@irishnews.net.